My guest today made 106 appearances for Everton between 82 and 88, winning a host of honours in that time. His playing career also included Aston Villa, Wolves, Carlisle, Northampton, Walsall and Scarborough. And still, whenever I look at his goal-scoring record, I can't help but be impressed. Derek Mountfield, how's things?
Not bad, Matt. You missed out on one of the most important teams then in Tranmere Rovers that gave him a chance.
I'm very sorry.
Not leave Tranmere, aren't they? They're the ones that saw me and gave me the opportunity. But apart from that, no, I'm great. I'm currently in quarantine, had 8 weeks in Spain, so I've got 3.5 days left. So fingers crossed I'll be out on the golf course next week and out on my bike by Saturday morning.
Great. You'd like to think so. And just to kickstart things for Grand Old Team and their listeners and their audience, I just wanted to get your reaction to the weekend's result. I mean, finally, Everton back to winning ways after a 3-game skid, beating Fulham 3-2 away. Great first half, scoring the 3 goals. The second half, not so much. What was your take on it?
It's one of them situations. I think football's in a very strange place at the moment. I find it difficult to watch the games without the atmosphere of the crowd in there, and you flick from channel to channel, one without sound, one with sound. It's still not the same. And I think some of the players have suffered because of it. I think the players sometimes need the crowd either on the back or behind them. So football is in a very strange place. But as for the game, after the great start when they put us on a massive high, we were top 4 games, 12 points. We're all thinking, here we go, we've done it. And then we lose games when we go on our away travels, we get away sick and, the way sickness. And I don't know what happens when we go away, but there seems to be a mentality shift when we go away, whether the players don't like the way they travel or the accommodation or I don't know, but it's happened to us for too long now. We need to sort the away form out and whether it's we change our routines. But saying that we kicked off and I looked at it and I'm thinking, look okay, and then got a good early goal. A bit lucky with the first goal with a little deflection into Dominic, but he's in the right place at the right time. And then I'm thinking, yeah, we go. And then we just took our foot off a little bit, and then we got back in the lead again and made it 3-1, and we looked comfortable. We had the wing backs pushing on. We looked solid and midfield winning tackles. And I think you've got to give a bit of credit to Fulham, because I think half time there was a bit of maybe a telling off of, you should call it a day, a bollocking or a rollicking, because second half they came out with a different shape and a different formation and different way of playing, and they really pushed their wingers on a bit more. I think that pushed us back a little bit, but we've got to be better than what we are to counter that. And I always look at the sidelines when they pan onto the managers, and you wonder what they're doing and what they're preparing and how they're telling players. But I just think we lost our way second half. But you do have to give credit to Fulham, because they definitely pushed us back a little bit. But when we got the ball, I think our decision making with the final pass was at times was shocking. A couple of times I'm looking at the ball in the right hand side of the back four, and I'm looking for the ball over the left full back for Dominic to run onto, and they're trying to play it to his chest. Sometimes you've got to turn the opposition to get them going back towards their goal. Then you can push yourself up and regroup again. But we gave the ball away too cheaply, and then we didn't get it back quickly enough. And in the end, I think 3-2, we were hanging on at times. But at other times in the game, I'm thinking, this is great, this is comfortable, we look composed. But all of a sudden, one thing happens, and when we're under pressure, we look like we're really under pressure, and looks like players don't know how to handle it. And I just wish, I say it all the time to people, I wish someone would do a Peter Reid and just grab him by the shirt and go, you better be better than this, because there's no leaders. Football and foot is lacking leaders now. It's epidemic throughout the game, because the leaders tended to be either lead by passion, desire, shout and scream, and lead by the way they played, and really led by the way he played. He got tackles, he got stuck in, and I think you're losing those sort of things. But I think sometimes we just need someone to sort of say, come on, boys, we are better than this. Let's get back to what we're doing and keep the ball a bit easier. But it doesn't happen that way. But 3-2's a bit. We're back on the front foot again. We're back in the top 6, which is a long way to go with the season yet. But we have to be better. If football is a 90-minute game, not a 45 or a 30-minute game, and at the moment, since we lost that first game, we haven't produced a 90 minutes of football yet. We're very sporadic for me.
Definitely, and the sort of the binary of both halves, it just seems like Everton in a nutshell, really. You touched on the sort of essence of leaders in today's game, and for me, obviously, it was Richarlison's first game back from suspension, and his impact was evident from the off. He was really influential in forcing that goal 42 seconds in for Dominic, and we're at a real strange crossroads when it comes to looking for a captain at the moment. Obviously, we got Seamus there, who's out at the present moment as well. In that run of 3 defeats, we went without the likes of Digne and Rodriguez, who are considered those that lead by example and are better players. We obviously rely heavily on Dominic for his goals. Where do you rank Richarlison's importance in this side?
I think after the sending off, I think he's the one player who really did miss. I think Dominic looks a better player now because he's having someone further up with him and closer to him. I always said Dominic wouldn't score enough goals because A, didn't get the service and B, didn't get the support. He was always winning the header and chasing the loose ball down, which happened in the 3 games when Richarlison wasn't there. But when he's closer to Dominic, I see a better player in Dominic, and I think they've got a bit of an understanding. And I think he was crucial. He is crucial to where we go from here. Ancelotti is saying he can win the Ballon d'Or, etc., etc. That's a long way in the future. We just wanted to perform week in, week out in the royal blue shirt, and I think he was crucial to being missed. He gives something to Dominic, and Dominic looks more composed when Richarlison alongside him, and I think he is crucial. He's just got to stop Richarlison, his little, I don't want to call it petulance, but he goes down to he's looking for free kicks and penalties, and he stamps up, and then he makes stupid challenges, and that against Liverpool paid the penalty when we lost him for 3 games, and he was crucial. But maybe going away with the World Cup qualifiers and that, and going back to Brazil, he's come back with a bit more of a fresh impetus. But for me on Sunday, my biggest point was James Rodriguez. He never got in the game. He got a great pass in for the ball for Dean's cross, but apart from that, he didn't really stamp anything onto the game. But you can afford to carry him. You can't afford to carry both him and Richarlison when they have a bad game. So at least Richarlison was on his game. But I think Richarlison is crucial to where we need to go in the future. And I think he's shown over the last 18 months, 2 years, what a good player he is and what an even better player he can be if he does the right things. He might end up leaving Everton. We might make a lot of money on him. But at the moment, he is very important to where we are trying to play football.
Most definitely. It is one of those things. Like I do feel like if we don't achieve anything anytime soon, he will be fully justified in leaving. I mean, he certainly does come across as one of those players that can go on and achieve some great things in his career.
If you look at that, at the moment, does he want to leave Everton? Does he want to stay under Ancelotti and develop under him? I don't know. You don't know what's in the background. The big thing Steve Bruce this week's like an agent's off. You don't know what his agent's saying to him. And his agent knows that he's probably pushed his transfer fee up to 80, 90 million pounds at the current climate minimum, the way the money's spread around. And you don't know what his agent's chirping down the ear over and saying, I can get you to Barcelona, I can get to Real Madrid, it's going to be worth X amount to you. I think sometimes agents put players off a little bit, but at the moment, Richarlison's one focus seems to be playing for Everton, and he looks like he enjoys it as well. That's the he looks like he's enjoyed himself when he plays, although he does look a bit dull and boring at times with his facial expressions. I think he enjoys playing for Everton at the moment, and that's partly down to Ancelotti, I think, as well. I think he's developing this group of players now, and this is the first time, I've said this, we've looked at Richard, we've looked at Koeman and Silva, but I think this is a project now that Ancelotti thinks he can take on and take to a higher level. So fingers crossed, Richarlison will be part of it. But as I said before, I never know what agents do in the background, and that worries me, really worries me.
I'd agree with that, and I'd also agree in that he seemed like a real role model. I feel for like say the younger supporters, like he resonates greatly with the sort of young fan base and that. You know, I think
it's when he throws his shirt. That's when he throws his shirt in the crowd every game. He's giving something back to the fans, but and that's where his way of connecting with the fans, I think, and it's a great way to do it. It might cost him £50 a week for a new shirt every time he does it. Jimmy Martin's probably tearing his hair out, but he's trying to connect with the fans and get that relationship, and he's got it because I haven't seen a group of fans link onto a player like for a long time like they have done with Charleston over the last 18 months. He really is a fan's favourite at the moment.
Yeah, I would say so. One of the things that I did want to touch on you with is that you sort of elucidated it there that like there was a change in formation for this one. Carlo adopted a back three with Digne and Alex Iwobi as the wing backs. I felt like it came to the benefit of Ben Godfrey. Obviously, he wasn't out there as a right back, sort of out of position. He felt he looked a bit more comfortable. But Yerry Mina, again, seemed to be looking to have a real tough time with it. Now, for you, as a centre-back, and a bloody good one at that, what's your assessment of the defensive issues at the moment? Because, for as many that we do score, we always look like we can concede at the minute.
But I can guarantee any Everton game at the moment will never finish 0-0. I can guarantee that for a start. Never be a 0-0 draw at the moment where we're playing. I just think with the way we're playing, and I looked at the game Sunday, and I looked at the goal they scored, and if you're playing three centre-backs and you saw Michael Keane was getting pulled out, Yerry Mina just stayed centre of the goal and didn't move over quick enough, and then he does this silly knee down on the floor instead of getting his body in. Yerry Mina is still, for me, one I'm not wholly convinced of yet. We signed him on the back of a great World Cup, and how many clubs have signed players on the back of a great World Cup haven't really worked for him. He's got the height, he's comfortable on the ball, but I just think his decision making at times is a little bit uneasy. But saying that, you can say the same about Michael Keane. Michael plays, and when Mason came back after his injury, he didn't look as comfortable as he has done in the previous games. And I just think, I always say this to people, when I played at Everton, we had a consistent backline. We never changed the backline. The best teams who won trophies over years, and you look back to Arsenal, the Invincibles, Man United, even Liverpool last couple of years, they very rarely change the back four unless injury makes it that way. Because you get an understanding, you know where players are going to go, you know where players will be, you have a sense where they are when you're going for a challenge or a header, and the communication's good. But I just think with chopping and changing, the first time I played three at the back with Everton, we weren't very good. I think I played, Dave Watson and Rats played. It was a bit all over the show because it's a different way of playing. Instead of having two players covering the space, you've now got three, and you tend to find players getting each other's way. They're not sure where they should be, what they should be doing. But talking, communication, it does help. But that's one thing I don't see enough of. Is there enough communication about man on, right shoulder? You see people say man on, and they look right, and it's gone left, and they look left, it's gone right. It just takes it. Right shoulder, Matt's right shoulder. You look right shoulder, you've got your player. Players are to be focused at the ball. They don't look over the shoulder often enough. And I just think communication levels lax. But defensively, are we relying too much on the holding midfield players we have as well? Because I thought at times there was a lot of space between them and our back four or back three on Sunday, and the players were just dropped. So if I'm marking you, Match, and you drop off behind Alan, do I shout him to pick him up, or do I go? If there's three there, I can go with him, and the two can tuck in a little bit. It's all about, it's a new formation, and it might be the formation Carlo wants to play long term. I don't know, but at times we look a little bit suspect when we're playing this three at the back, and then second half when they just push their wingers on a bit off our two fullbacks or wing backs in Dean, and where we just couldn't get forward. And that's when I say it's important when we do get the ball, we put the ball in better positions. We don't try and find the forwards' feet all the time. And but long term, I still favour four at the back, a flat back four. Whether that includes Yerry Mina, who, as you say, I'm still very unsure about him at times. There's always a mistake or two in him every game. But is Ben Godfrey and Michael Keane the answer? Is it Godfrey and Holgate? Is it Holgate and Keane? It's one of them. That's for the manager to decide. But we've got to stop conceding goals. We do concede far too many goals too easily. And that's why I said at the moment, there's a guarantee it will never, never be a 0-0 draw for Everton this season, because we're liable to score and we're also liable to concede. But he's got to get the back line right for me. And I'm sure that's in his remit now and what he's looking at, because we've got to stop conceding the goals we do. It's too easy sometimes to get through our back line. I can't put a finger on how we're going to stop it, but we worked on it in training with Colin Harvey and Howard. We worked on shape. We worked on play people in front of us. We worked on calling players across, informing people, and maybe we need to do a bit more of this in everyday training instead of just playing keep ball and five-a-sides. Maybe work on our shape a bit more and get players aware of where players are around them.
Yeah, as you kind of elucidated to and put it down to there, it does seem like a sort of modern day shift in the coaching almost, in what exactly is important off the ball. And I think a great example of that, and credit where credit is due, in our good spells on the weekend, the wing backs were very influential. Luca Dean, as we all know, sensational left back, one of, if not the best left back in the league, and someone I've been very critical of Alex Iwobi since he signed for the club, because he's not exactly lived up to the billing, but his influence for Decore's header, his venturing forward, I thought he was excellent. But as you say, you don't quite know where the answer lies, whether it's I agree with you in that I do think we're going to go back to a 4-3-3, a back four. I feel like that's just a lot easier for the communication, especially I was going to say with Pickford as well. If you think Pickford's someone who's been scrutinised for his lack of ability to communication and whatnot, if it's a back four in front of him, something, I mean, I'm not making a judgment here, but I assume the sort of FA coaching system, you're used to having a back four in front of you, probably a lot easier for Pickford to understand as well.
It's one of them. It's hard to say, but when you're playing well, you're on form, nothing phases you. You're always positive. But when you're just not quite there, which we haven't been for 3 or 4 games, you're always a bit tentative. But if Iwobi keep as he did defensively, I'm not convinced yet. It'll take a bit of time to get him to be a fullback, but going forward, he's got pace, he's got power. As you said, I'm not convinced. I thought he'd be a decent signing for us, but he's not lived up to what we thought he was going to do. But we saw it on Sunday when he gets the ball and he runs at people. They're on the back foot, and he can go past with pace and finish with good quality passes. But long term, is it going to be 3? Is it going to be 4? Has Carl ever played with a regular back 3, or has he always used a back 4? But football has changed. Football's influenced now by different coaching styles, different coaching methods, different coaching terminology, as Reedy says very well. He calls it all bollocks, doesn't he? As you know that. It's when you say that they're trying to break through the lines, or get the ball in the channels and turn people. For me, it's just as good as breaking through the lines. We've got to recycle the ball, win the ball back, press people. Colin Harvey was influential in Everton becoming a team whereby making us press from the front, which gave the back 4 chance to push off. You don't press high up, you end up going deeper. And that's what we've noticed with Everton over the last couple of weeks. When we're not pressing well enough, we are deeper and deeper. And the deeper you get, the less space between the goalkeeper and the back 4, and the more chance we're going to concede. So if we keep pressing from the front and keep pressing up, excuse me, I think we're going to have a far better chance. But I just hope that we can find a steady, regular formation. I think 4-3-3 is probably the way to go. I think the Charleston with Dominic up front, and then allowing Rodriguez or James to just roam a little bit, because you look at Messi when Messi plays, he's never up front, he's never wide right, he's never wide left, he sometimes drops deeper. But what I don't want to see is Dominic coming as deep as he does at times, looking for the ball. I'd like to see him staying on the shoulder of the centre half and turning a bit more. So there was one incident I said before about Iwobi, I think, who's got the ball on the right hand side late or midway through the second half, and I'm saying put it down the channel, and he tries to clip the ball to Dominic's chest, and we lose the ball, and we're back under pressure straight away. that's the decision making. We've got to be better, and I think that's what Ancelotti's got to make the players aware. The final pass, you can keep the ball all day long if you can, but it's the final ball, it's that telling final ball that makes the difference. Whether it's a pass into the box for the goal chance or a pass out the back four to relieve the pressure and let you get a bit of a respite. That final decision is good enough for us at the moment for me.
Yeah, definitely. It's decision making, isn't it? I think that's key to any top side. It's having that final killer pass or the right decision making at the end of it all.
It's the confidence to make it, the decision right, but you've also got the players looking for those balls. You look at, I keep mentioning Liverpool again, they don't always put the ball to feet, they put it into an area, and the players are, and as soon as that player sets off, you then got 1, 2, 3, 4 in support, the back four gets up. Now we're trying to play the ball to Dominic's chest or to his head. No, I'd like to see it just lift it over the fullback's head and Dominic turn and run. Then we up. And that's the difference. It's the decision making, the confidence to do it, and having players expecting the ball. The best crosser of the ball in the world put the ball in the box expecting the centre forward to be there. And if they're not, they then have a bollock into the centre forward. But if the centre forward makes the run and the winger doesn't put it in, the winger should expect the bollock in. And that's what I don't see enough of. I want the ball in there, like you're fucking but, and I want to see a bit more, I wanted it there because that's where we're going so wrong. That our final decision making is not quite right at the
moment. As soon as we rectify that, I feel like we will be onto something now. To just round up on our current form, and then I wouldn't mind asking a few questions about your own career, if you wouldn't mind. Now,
by the way, mate.
I know you talked. One of the first things that you brought up is that our away form and the mentality of Everton is something that often, is questioned heavily. But with that win on the weekend, that's the first time Everton have recorded 3 consecutive wins in London since April 87. Sorry. So I think that was Spurs, Palace, and Fulham. Which, as long as I've been alive, Fulham's always been a, bit of a hard place to go. So I feel like that could do wonders for us now. It's obviously still early days. Aside from those 3 losses, there's been a lot of positives to take from the opening games of this season. What do you feel like this team can achieve?
Oh, thanks, Max. For me, I'd like to see more than the consistency. A level of performance where you can see it. It took, when I played in the A, it took us a while to get that, but we then had a level of consistency, a level of performance that we very rarely dropped. And I don't see that. I just want that consistency, that week in, week out, home and away, you have a good level of performance. You don't peak at 8 one week and then 3 or 4 or 5 the week after. It's that level of performance. I think we've got the players who can move us on. I think the signings in the summer of, Alan was Decore. They've given us a different dimension in that midfield area. We know what James can do. He can be the best player on the pitch, or that's on Sunday, probably the worst player on the pitch. But it's that consistency. I think if we get the back four settled, even if it means leaving Pickford out and giving whoever, a chance, I don't know. Manager will make that decision, but start with a consistent backline and build on it. And that's been the strength of most teams. You can change one player a week, but you can't change 2 or 3 and keep changing the formation. But I see a positive future now. I think we've got an element of class in the side now. We haven't had for a while. 3 or 4 players there are really, really classy players now. We've got Dominic, who now must be so full of confidence. It's beyond belief. He's got his England call up. He's scored goals for his country now. He's scored, is it 10 in 9 games or something in the first team in the Premier League.
Top goal scorer in the league now.
The confidence will be flowing through him, but then you turn it round and you look. Is Michael Keane full of confidence? Is Pickford full of confidence? Is Mina full of confidence? And there's a difference then. We've got players who are on the up and the players who are not quite at the game yet. So for me, we have a good opportunity now to kick on and hopefully cement at least a top 8 place. if we're outside the top 8, I'll be disappointed. I'm not looking at top 4. I'm not looking at the top 3. I'm not looking at winning it. I'm looking at a consistent level of performance to get us into the top 8. So when you go to Newcastle, you don't go and lose at Newcastle. You put a bit more of a fight at Southampton. They're the games we shouldn't be losing. But you can turn around. You look at teams. You look at Aston Villa, who actually walloped Liverpool 7-2, but haven't won at home since. You know, it's a strange game. Football's a strange game, and I just hope over the coming months whether we get fans back into the ground. I'm not sure we will at the moment. There might be up to 4,000 to 5,000 fans every week at Gooders Park now. Will that help the players? Will it hinder the players? Have they enjoyed playing with no fans? I wouldn't. I'd rather play with fans, because there's something about the shout you hear from the terraces, the screams, the singing, the songs. And I think some of the players are missing that. But let's just get to that consistent performance. Let's have 7.5 out of 10 each week. Don't go to 5 like we have so often this season, away at Newcastle, away at Southampton, when players have just not turned up. Let's get that consistency, because there is a very good chance now that we can move on to bigger things and better things. And as I said for many years now, just get us to Wembley. Just get us to a cup final.
Silverware, please.
Just silverware. I don't even care if it's a 3-handled League Cup. I don't care which one it is. Just get us to Wembley. Get us some silverware. Give us that belief as the fans. We can see that. We can see we've got the players who can possibly do it. But now we've got to see the players do it, because as fans, we've been far too long without any silverware. Far too long for him.
That's a great message to get across to this current group of players. I feel I've still not seen us lift anything, and it bugs me.
Well, I said before, Max, as a fan myself, I was only, I think it was 6.5, 7 in 1970 when they won the league.
Yeah.
I didn't go to Wembley in 77 because I had a cup final, or for the schools, and all of a sudden I'm in the team that wins the first trophy, and you know. And then in 95, I was doing an FA coaching badge just after knee operation, so I didn't go to 95 either. So as a fan myself, I've not seen Everton lift a trophy, although I'm classed as being part of the greatest ever team ever. As a fan, I've not seen Everton lift a trophy. So you think you're struggling? I think I feel it in the 60s.
Hey, at least you were there for the 80s. Now, we'll get on to that, but I have my own independent podcast where I love giving people the platform to tell their stories, you know, career, personal or otherwise. And I remember meeting you about this time last year, maybe a bit earlier in the month, for the premiere of the film, Everton, Howard's Way. And one of the things that I remember you saying to me was, you know, you were born in Tobruk, brought up on the Wirral, and you had a season ticket in the street end till the 81 season when you were breaking through at Tranmere. I feel like in this part of the world, you're encapsulated in a bubble of football, aren't you? Was a career in football all you'd envisioned as a kid?
No.
I
didn't know. When I went to my final year in school in 78, 79, I was playing a lot of rugby union. I walked in and I said to the teacher there, I'm not playing rugby, sir, to which he blew his top, because I still loved watching the game, but I just didn't want to play anymore. I was told me I was in the Cheshire County squad. I was having England schoolboy trials, and I just stopped playing rugby. But I wasn't attached to any football club until January 79, when I was 16. I had no idea what I was going to do. I love sport. It was cricket, it was football, it was basketball, it was rugby. You give me a thing and I'd have a go at it. I love the sport. Education-wise, I was useless. I lived for the bell. So the bell went, I ran out with the football and played in the yard, or played cricket in the field, or did something. Education me weren't compatible at the time. And if I hadn't joined Tranmere in 79 January and signed apprentice in the July, August, I don't know what I'd have done. I really hadn't a clue. I'd have probably had to go and resit all my GCSEs and CSEs, as they were in those days, to get some qualifications to go and do something, because I hadn't a clue what I was doing. Luckily, football gave me that platform. I didn't see myself as a great player. I played with other players in my junior side, Poulton Vicks, Putting Athletic, who we had one at Everton, one at Sheffield Wednesday, and they both never made it in the game after being there from the age of 13, 14. So maybe I got lucky. Maybe giving me the opportunity was great, but I never saw myself playing football long term. But since '79, it's been a massive part of my life, and I loved every minute of it. I don't enjoy football as much as I used to, because I want to see proper tackles and dirty, muddy pitches, and players drinking pints of lager and smoking rather than having energy drinks and Lucozade, that sort of stuff. But it's a different game now. You've got to understand that. But for me, football was wonderful. I remember playing Tranmere Friday night. I'd been at 8 o'clock in the morning, preparing all the changing rooms for the reserves who train at 10:30, and then we'd finish training, have to clear all the changing rooms and put all the kit out for the first team. We'd come in at 4 o'clock for pre-match meals, and then I'd be running around making cups of tea, pots of tea, getting balls pumped up for the match, and the game would finish at 7:30 kick-off, finished by 9:30, 9:45, and then I'd have to get all the change rooms tied up, because first thing Monday morning I had to get it all to the laundrette. So my weekend Friday used to finish at like 10:30, 11 o'clock most Fridays, and then I was playing for the A team Saturday morning at 10 o'clock, 10:30, and then by 1 o'clock I was on the ferry over to Goodison Park. So my football was dominated. Merseyside, said, it's a hotbed, and my life from probably 12 or 13 was dominated by primarily football, but also other sports. But Friday afternoons, I used to love the Fridays with Tranmere, playing Friday night, then playing Saturday morning, and then meet my mates at the pier head, Seacombe Ferry, and get the ferry over and the bus up, and go and watch Everton, and then come back. And it's the way it was in those days. It's a bit different now, but you can actually go and have a pint now without any issues, which was good. But in those days, at the age of 13, 14, 12, it wasn't hard. It was very hard to find someone to give you a pint. I would have loved it at the time, but I never got one until I was a bit older. But those memories of Goodison Park in the mid-70s, late 70s was brilliant. I was there when Andy King scored against Liverpool to make it 1-0, and then I was there when Latch got his 30th goal, and I was there for other games that I remember. And you just look back and think we were so close in those times. And as you know, I know Bob Latch very well now. He's a very good personal friend of mine, and he maintains if we'd have signed Peter Shilton, we might well have won the league. He thinks that Shilton was the one that we never got. I know there was rumours that he says there was rumours we were getting him, and Schultz has told him he was on his way, but he went to Forest instead. And it just shows you how close teams can be. But those days watching Everton, I used to love standing on the street, getting there at like 1 o'clock in the afternoon, standing at the side of the Bullens Road to get into the corner, the same spec every week, singing and chanting songs, and watching players who I used to love watching, never thinking that I'd do what I did 5 years later. And those players are now classed as a lot of those are personal friends, which I still find quite surreal. Although I'm an former Everton player, to talk to the Dobsons and the Mackenzies and the Latchfords and the Ken McNaughts, it's great, because they've got as many hit stories as I have, and I love debating football with them, because we've all got our own opinions, and we all know how it should be played. It's just we don't play it like we should do. But for me, it was a dream. I never thought I'd join Everton. I was happy at Tranmere. I'd broken into the first team. I'd done okay. But when that phone call came, or the shout from Brian Hamilton that I'm going to sell you, much to my disappointment, and he said it was Everton, I couldn't get the phone to me quick enough to speak to Howard Kendall. And as I say, the rest is now history, isn't it?
Of course. I love that. I really do love that. And something that I wanted to say, right, is that I absolutely love getting the chance to speak with or interviewing defenders. I spoke to Michael Ball last week. I spoke to Rats a couple of times, and my granddad, I was really, really close with my granddad. My granddad played for Everton in the 50s. He was in the B team and the reserves in the 50s. He was a centre half. He played with the likes of Dave Ixon, Tony McNamara. And he, like you, he loved the number 5. Always taught me. He brought me up to believe lucky number 5. I've got number 5 tattooed on me as well for good luck. And he sort of, we'd sit and, before podcasts were a thing, we'd have hour-long discussions about football, discussing players, managers, sides, and he always brought me up to sort of analyse and sort of pay attention to defenders' games. And I was wondering, obviously, I remember something else that you said, that you were a striker when you were a young teen as well. Were there any players, I know you said, the players now that are close personal friends, but people that you looked up to and considered role models, not necessarily even in football, but sport in general?
Well, for me, I was a striker till I was nearly 14, I think it was. So my high growing up was Everton fan, was Bob Latchford, because he was a goal scorer, and I used to watch him. But I never used to watch the Nick Lyonses and Ken McNaughts, because I was a centre forward. I'm not going to watch him. But I always say to people, wherever you play, take a chance, go to a game of football, and don't watch the game. Watch the player in your position, see how they move, how they talk, what the arm sequence are, how they react to things, because you learn a lot by watching players individually. But role model for me, it's got to be your parents. And I had a very close relationship with my granddad as well. He was being in the First World War, mounted policeman. He was on duty when Dixie Dean got his 60th goal. So he talked about Everton in the 30s. He handed me a 1932 Liverpool Echo, which is somewhere in my collection somewhere. So my granddad was close, and he'd come to games, and he'd whack me with his walking stick if I made a mistake. He was one of those people that he was absolutely magnificent. My dad was the same. Unfortunately, my dad had a few health issues, so he couldn't come out very often into the cold weather, because he really struggled in the cold weather. But for me, as a sports person, my ultimate sports idol was Muhammad Ali, because I just thought he was just an outstanding athlete, so full of confidence, so full of bravado, but put it into play when we got into the ring. And I've always had a soft spot for Ali, but I just think what he went through growing up in the military, etc. And I just think he made a massive point about what he was and who he was. And I love watching the programs with him, talking to people, and he's full of laughs and jokes. But when he came to do the job, he did the job to the best of his ability every time. But as a footballer, for me, it was Bob Latchford, because I was a striker, and as I said before, he was my hero. But I learnt a lot very quickly when I went to centre half at the age of 14, and luckily by the age of 16, I'd done enough to warrant a chance. Maybe my touch wasn't good enough. I always thought I was a two-touch player, but the second touch with a tackle didn't work all the time for me. But as a centre half, if I look back, you look back to the likes of the Bobby Moores in the 60s, and
LeBone was one for me. Yeah, I was going to say LeBone.
Yeah, Brian LeBone.
My granddad always said to watch LeBone.
I never met Brian until I'd finished playing football, and again, like the likes of Gordon West, I became very close with him, being part of the Foreign Players Foundation. And my dad talked about Brian LeBone, my granddad talked to Brian LeBone, my granddad talked about Dave Dixon, so did my dad, and the Ali Youngs and Derek Temples. And I got to know these players long after my granddad had died, and then just after my dad had died. And that's one of my, not a regret, but a disappointment that I never got the chance to introduce my dad to some of his heroes who I got to know well, the Alec Youngs, the Alan Balls, the Derek Temples, the Labbies, the Westies. And because in those days when I played football, we never saw the former players at all. It was just, you never saw them. Now with all the foundations, you get to meet the players. And that's a big disappointment. I couldn't introduce my dad to, because Alec Young was my dad's hero. He actually loved Alec Young. I never got the chance to introduce him to. And that's one of the things you look back in. I lost my dad very young. He was only 60-something when he died, and he hadn't been well for a few years. So I was disappointed I couldn't really introduce my dad to his heroes. But, I've had the times around those players, and, the things my dad talked about, I've mentioned to those players, and they bring up the certain things about it. So it's nice that I know them, but I wish I could have introduced my dad to one or two of them.
Yeah, I can resonate entirely with that. My dad passed away late last month, quite suddenly, age of 57. And I think he was like a year younger than you. And he grew up, talking about the likes of yourselves, the squad in the 80s, and the 70s and that. He bloody loved Andrei Kanchelskis as well. I never got to see Andrei Kanchelskis play, but I would have loved to have seen Andrei Kanchelskis because he said,
Oh, he'll kill my career, Andrei. There's a story about that. I'll do that another story, but I've got a story about me and Andrei.
Oh, I'll get around to that in a minute.
Oh, you want to know, don't you? Okay.
Go on.
Well, when my last year at Villa, 91-92, Ron Atkinson came in, and I was in the current process to discuss a new contract with the club, and eventually he took it away. But I started the first 2 games of the season. We won away at Sheffield Wednesday, and then we got beat 1-0 at home by Man United midweek. I wore the number 2 shirt, and I told Andrei that I went to a dinner with him a few years ago, and I told Darren Griffiths the story. He said, I'm going to use that. I'm going to get you up. I said, okay, mate, no problems. So Darren goes, well, Derek, Andrei, good player. What's your thoughts on him? I went, I fucking hate him. And Andrei went, oh, Derek, I'm so sorry. I went through the story about I played at Villa. I wore the number 2. I didn't play. Paul McGraw played right, but I said, but you ripped me apart, you bastard. I never played in the top 5 after that. I'll never forgive you for that. He went, Derek, I'm so sorry. But I only ever played once against Andrei when he was at United in 91-92, and he was magnificent that day. He's got power, he had pace, he had directness. And then when he came to Everton, although he wasn't there for long, I've never known a player get so much adulation by a group of fans as quickly as he did. He gave the fans something, and he's a wonderful fella. I had such a laugh with him, I really did. But he can't. Every time he sees me apologising now for finishing my top flight career, I never played that top flight after that, so I always blame Andrei for that one.
Funny though. Now, you're saying about there, the 70s and whatnot. Like me dad obviously told me so many stories of travelling around Europe and that, watching us in 70s and 80s, but we weren't without our trials and tribulations in the 70s in particular. Even the early 80s. You can look back, say, the League Cup in '77 against Villa, or something that I remember you talking about, the Milk Cup against Liverpool, where we just fell short in the replay. Can you share any stories of just from your own experiences of seeing that change within the club to turning us into winners?
Well, I joined in '82. Howard had been there this season, and he'd signed his Magnificent 7 the year before, which turned out to be that Magnificent 1 with Big Nev. No one else really, apart from Jim Ardle, set the world alight when they came in. And I think he went through a bit of a reevaluation of who he needed and what he needed. And obviously he saw something in Sheed, Alan Harper, myself, and then I spent the first year working with Colin Harvey, and Colin was just superb. And I'd seen, the struggles we had, the Glenn Keeley game against Liverpool, and other games where Billy Wright and, Higgy, who's still a great friend of mine, and we struggled. And then 83, 84, when I started the first 3 games of the season after Kevin got sent off, and then I was quickly back in the stands when Kevin was fit again, and we just never got going. And I didn't get into the side until I think it was November time. And I remember going, I think it might have been Arsenal away or Forest away, and he actually dropped John Bailey and played Kevin at left back, played myself and Mark at centre half. So like me and Kevin, we had a right foot and left foot combination. And then I remember we played on the Saturday somewhere. Oh, sorry, we played West Ham midweek down at West Ham, and it was only my 5th or 6th game in the first team in the League Cup it was, and that's when I scored my first goal in the royal blue shirt for Everton. Sorry, for West Ham. Another one of my many own goals. And the following game, it was Old Trafford away, Man United, and I turned up to the game expecting to be left out the side. I remember having my coat with me, and Bale was in the squad, and Mark and Kevin, myself and Gary, and I expected to be left out. And when Howard never named the team until 1:55 or 1:45. He didn't name the team before on the Friday. There was always a squad list up, but the team was never picked. And he goes to the team, and I sort of went, "Oh, he's dropped me." And then I went, "No, he's he's named me there, and I'm playing. And we won 1-0 at Old Trafford, and then we kept my place again, and we beat West Ham in the replay on the Wednesday. And that was the last time Mark Higgins ever played for Everton again. And I always say about Mark, I've got a lot of time for Mark. He's a good friend of mine. He was a fantastic footballer. He's a fantastic gent. He's still an ox now, built like an ox. And for Mark's misfortune, it was my fortune. And you don't get those opportunities in life very often. So I wasn't going to turn it down and throw it away. But even though I got on the side, up until that Christmas, we were absolute rubbish. I remember getting booed off the pitch against Coventry, going to Wolves and getting stuffed, and then I think it was Sunderland or Southampton 0-0 again, and we were poor. We were poor, and the fans had all the placards and banners out and leaflets, sack the board, Kendall must go, and all credit to Philip Carter, who said, no, he's the right man for me. And people talk about the Oxford game in this, but I remember going to Birmingham on 2nd of January 1984 in that lovely silver kit we had, which we very rarely ever used. It was silver that day. And Kevin had gone in and done the team sheet. Referee seen that, yeah, no problems. We go and warm up, and we come back in, and literally 15 minutes before kickoff, there's a knock on the door. I think Mick Eaton opened it, and referee goes, Mr. Kendall, I'm afraid you can't wear the silver kit tonight. It's going to clash under floodlights with the Birmingham City kit, to which someone chirps up in the background, no doubt Andy Gray. So is it skins for us tonight then, referee? And he went, no, it's not. And he brought in Birmingham City's away kit, which was yellow, blue, yellow, which I think is an Everton away kit.
Yeah.
We wear it, we call it now. We won 2-0, didn't lose for like 20 odd games. And I always look at that as a bit of a turning point. It was all of a sudden we got a win, and we turned that win into another win. And then Oxford went down to Oxford, and they were flying. They'd knocked everybody out. Yeah, we rode our luck a little bit, and Inchy gets a great equaliser. And then all of a sudden we spank them. But I remember the week after the Birmingham game, we went to Stoke in the FA Cup on the Saturday, and there must have been 7,000-8,000 Blues in the terraces there, and we were poor. We were like 17th on the table or something, and all we could hear was Everton songs being sung. And Howard literally opened the window, and went, "Do it for them, do it for them." The noise coming in was just magnificent. It's probably the simplest team to have had in his life. Just opened the window and said, "Listen to that. Do it for them today, boys." We won 2-0. And we got a bit of belief, and belief is very hard to find in football. How we found it, I'm not sure. Maybe that window opening was the turning point, but we won at Birmingham, won at Stoke, then drew, and then we carried on. And then I always remember the Oxford replay in horrible snowy conditions, we beaten 4-1. And then there was a sudden belief all over the place about this team is going somewhere. We thought we could do something. And I think the biggest lift was actually getting to Wembley in the Milk Cup final, and then matching Liverpool stride for stride, toe for toe for 120 minutes at Wembley. And maybe Potter should have won it if we got the right decision of going for us with the handball, and then narrowly losing the replay. So, and then we came out there thinking, we're as good as these. And when you match someone who have been or were the best team around, and we matched them, but again, we come in pre-season, we lose the first 2 games, and then we win at Anfield. Again, yeah, we can do this. But better, we're as good as these, if not better than these. And it's them little games that you remember that pick us up. Howard never ever changed his routines. He never believed in going to a cup final on the Wednesday and spending 3 nights in a hotel. You go down the day before the game. You don't change your routines. You don't, because as you know, when you go like me in quarantine at the moment, you're sitting around doing nothing, you get tired. You know, so he said, no, we'll do what we do. Thursday, do what you want to do with your families, but Friday morning, preparation starts for the big games on Saturday. And that was one of his strengths. He never screamed, he never shouted. I've seen him rant and rave. We had our disagreements on more than one occasion. But he had something, along with Colin Harvey, and a group of players that I've not seen in a football club for a long time, especially Everton. There was a mass belief that we were as good, if not better than everybody. if we went 1-0 down, we'll make it at least 1-1, maybe make it 2-1 or 3-1. We never believed we were beaten. And that's one of the best things, we had about that team. And again, you go to the Bayern Munich semi-final, and I remember before the game, we couldn't get to Goodison Park. There must have been 100,000 people outside Goodison Park, what it felt like it anyway. And then we get into the ground and we come out, and at half-time, we're 1-0 down, and there was a pin drop when they scored. The volume got turned right down. You could hear the pin drop. Those moments, but we came off, and I was like, boys, you're fitter than them, you're stronger than them, you're better than them. You're now attacking the street end. Get the ball in the box, and the street end will suck it in. Your Gabby Stevens launches it, Andy Gray rearranges a couple of noses, and we're all of a sudden 2-1 up. And the atmosphere is just beyond belief then. It's actually magnificent. And I always remember Trevor's the third goal going in, and I've never heard a roar like that third goal. It was just incredible that Everton had got to a European final from being nowhere 18 months beforehand. And as I said, it was, for me as a Blue, I still pinch myself to believe actually what happened to me in those 4 years at Everton. But I'm so proud to have been part of that team, and I still have all the bits and pieces, as you know, from the Howard's Way documentary when everything came out of the loft. It was very nicely placed in a box for me to find. But I've now moved from that house, so I can't do any more loft tours, which are making me a fortune at one stage. But no, I just look back with incredibly fond memories of the team. I wish I'd soaked a bit more in and been a bit more remembering things, because things fly by too quickly. We didn't have mobile phones. We didn't have massive cameras everywhere for taking pictures and dropping into all the time. I've got very few photographs of me playing football, and I've not seen much of myself playing football because there was only one camera. There wasn't the big as it is now. But memories are great. You never take the memories away. And for me, the biggest thing is I still find it hard to understand the respect we get off the fans. I'm always amazed by it, always humbled by it as well, because I'm an Evertonian first and foremost, and I lived a lot of people's dreams by being able to put the royal blue shirt on. And then what I did for me was a complete and utter bonus. As I said before, I've still got my contract from '82 for when I signed for the club. It's in pristine condition. That was enough for Derek Mountfield. I've signed for Everton. I didn't expect the next 4 or 5 years to be as good as it was. Rightly very proud of it, and also very humbled by the respect I offer of all you fans. It's just amazing.
Goosebumps hearing that, mate, especially like that semi-final against Bayern Munich. What I'd give to be in the street end for that game, it just it sounds absolutely just surreal. Like I've been in. For me, my favourite Goodison memory is beating Liverpool in the FA Cup. I think it was around 2009. We got to the final that year, got beat by Chelsea, but I think it was 2 minutes before penalties. You look at Liverpool's side: Torres, Gerrard, Alonso. If it goes to penalties, we're getting beat. And some 18, 19-year-old kid curls one in and pushes us through to the next round.
Either missed it, went to a break.
I know. I'm so lucky that I was there. You know what I mean? Because I've got the memories of just before that ball gets hit. You described Bayern Munich going in front, just silence before that ball hits the back of the net. But I mean, I can only imagine what it means when something's actually on the line, like getting to a European Cup final.
So it was an amazing time, Max, to be part of that team. It really was, and we had a laugh getting back together last year. And I'm sure there'll be more reunions planned before we all start disappearing, because we're not getting any younger, are we? We've seen the amount of top-class forward players that have gone over the last 12 to 15 months. You look at the Norman Hunters, the Trevor Cherries, the Ray Clemences, and people I knew and classed as friends. We're getting no younger. I want this to keep going as long as we can. I want the respect to be I want to be humbled when I go to Goodison Park by the respect I get off the fans as long as I possibly can. And I just hope that before we get one more opportunity as 11 players, possibly to walk out onto Goodison Park together and salute the fans who have just been magnificent, even though we're in our 60s now. It would be nice if we all get together and can actually go onto that pitch as a team. and say our thanks to the fans. I think it's one thing that we'd all appreciate, we'd all love to do. And I just hope that one day we can all get together and do it on the pitch at Goodison Park for one last time.
Yeah, long may it continue, and I do thoroughly hope that you get that opportunity. One of the things that I wanted to ask, maybe to finish off on Everton, before one question on later on in your career, with Howard, you described that moment, of that just sort of that transcendent moment of opening the window and saying, "Do it for them." Just that approach to man management that is so hard to find, that breeds confidence, which is a rarity within football. Obviously, Howard had been there and done it in the 60s under the management of Harry Catterick, I believe, I've been told, who was a very stoic man, very sort of cold, very much believed, I am the manager, you are the players, and there was that sort of dissonance between the positions. How would you describe Howard's approach to management?
Well, if I go back to when I joined in '82, Tranmere's pre-season was run for the first 10 days. You never saw a ball. You just ran around the sand hills, around the parks, and you got your fitness. Then the ball came out 10 days later. Well, I'd done all my training pre-season around New Brighton, around the sand hills, around the dips and everything else, and all of a sudden I come in, and first day back pre-season, Howard's got the balls out, and I'm going, what balls? And we did all our work pre-season with balls. The longest one I did with Howard was about 25 minutes. Everything was done with the ball, shorts. He says, you don't run for 5 minutes non-stop on a football pitch. You might do longest might be a 50-yard sprint. You might do a 10-yard. So all the work was done with little games involving the ball. And the longest one of that was probably about 40 yards. But it was all done with the ball. So you're getting fatigued while you're on the ball. So the ball's always close. You're looking after the ball. And I just found that so hard. He was ahead of his game when it came to that sort of stuff. And then the man management side, with all the fines being collated, and then every 4 months going off to a Chinese restaurant somewhere and spending the money on food and drink. You won't see that nowadays. You won't see the players all going together with the manager saying, right, I found you £10,000, I found you £10,000, we're going out for a Chinese meal. I can't say it happen nowadays, but that was part and part. We'd sing and we'd chant, we'd have laughs and jokes, we'd have Big Neville not touching beer, drinking tea and having a chicken and chips, and we've got a big Chinese spread and bottles of wine and pints of lager. That was part of Howard's way of doing things. He believed in that, and also I said before about not changing routines, not going away too early, not coming in at the wrong times, and I also will want to. I know Howard gets a lot of praise, but I know the Rats and myself and Gary and Richard, who came through the ranks, will always give Colin Harvey an immense amount of pride, and thanks, because he was just wonderful for us. He worked on our weaknesses to make them strengths. He made our strengths stronger, and then when he played with the reserves and we played a slightly different way to the first team, and Howard brought him in, that was the final click for me. I think Colin was instrumental in helping us get where we were, because his coaching skill and knowledge was just second to none. I've got so much time for Colin. Made me a better player, and I'll always thank you for that. But I'll always thank Howard Kendall for, I said before, for finding a scrawny kid and giving him a chance. But Howard's strength was just, he was Howard. He liked to drink himself. He wasn't afraid to get the drinks out and flow it out. And there's always a good picture there when we're in the changing rooms after winning the league, and he opens a bottle of champagne. I think he gives it to Kevin or something, and he goes, "No, you have the drink first, Gaffer." And Howard takes the first swig out of the champagne bottle. That just shows the respect we have for the man. Like I said, he's sadly missed, and said I had my ups and downs like we all did, but his record as Everton manager is absolutely phenomenal. But long term, I'll always thank him for giving me the opportunity to do what I did. I never thought I'd do it, but I took the chance and loved every minute of it.
Of course, definitely the best manager in our history, and should be considered as one of the best British managers in my estimation.
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to ask, obviously, it's still very much bewilders me that you only spent around 4 or 5 years at the club. Like it seems like you were around for a lot longer than what you actually were, considering the amount.
I wish it was longer.
Yeah, but the trophies that you won, you must have thought that you'd have been there for a lot longer. And I know a fair share of people, people bring up letting Andy Gray go and bringing Gary Lineker in, and just the changeover of the squad that just didn't have the same sort of chemistry on the pitch, And one of the things that is mentioned to me, and that certain people believe that caused an issue, was phasing you out and bringing Dave Watson in. Dave Watson is Dave Watson, the last Everton captain to win a trophy, and I'm not discrediting him in any way, but that sort of changeover of bringing him in for you is something that I've been told didn't stand us in very good stead going forward.
It's one of them, Max. I had an injury. I got injured at QPR late '85, which then facilitated in the operation to remove my cartilage. And we tried to I'd had 2 little goes before, and we tried to get back a bit too quickly. Looking back, I was rushed back to get back in the first team, and I then spent about 3.5, 4 months trying to get it right. It just didn't get right. And I got back into the team. And then we managed to, unfortunately, lose away at Oxford. We lost us the league, and we lost the cup final. And I revealed this, a couple of years ago. I had an epileptic fit in the summer of '86, just before pre-season training started. I'd had one previously, 12 years before that. I've had none since. So you tell everyone else, you tell the manager, the physio, and everything else, the doctors, and Howard said, we'll keep this under wraps. And then within 6 weeks, he signed Dave Watson. So was the knee injury part of the issue? Was the fit part of the issue? I don't know. I've got no problems with Dave Watson. He was an outstanding person, outstanding player for Everton Football Club. But I still felt I had more to give the club at the time. Dave came in, and no matter how well I played when I got in the side, when Dave was in the team for the first season, when we won the league for the second time, I was always straight back out the side when Dave was fit. I remember we had three at the back at Southampton. Dave got injured, and me and Kevin played 9 or 10 games. Yeah, we lost 1, won 6 or something. And then we had a full Members' Cup game against Newcastle, and Dave was fit after his injury. So Howard says to me, I'm going to play Dave tonight. You're playing on Saturday. And then Friday afternoon, he told me I wasn't playing, to which I just opened the door, walked down, slammed it behind me, and didn't go to the game, didn't go in training. Walked in Monday morning, we had a right ding-dong. And that was it. I just then tried to do whatever I could to get back in the side. And whatever I did do, it was always Dave and Kevin that made after. No, I've got no issues. That's the way football goes. If the manager has a change of plan, you've got to understand that. But I gave my heart and soul for the next year to try and get back in the first team. And then Howard left, and I thought there might be a chance with Colin taking over. And Colin stayed with Kevin and Dave. And again, I got back in, got back out. And then I got an injury in the reserve match at Leeds. And then end of that season, when they were going away, Colin said, well, we're all going to Magaluf. I said, I don't want to go, Gaffer. I don't feel part of the squad. He said, I don't feel I've been part of the squad all season. I've been, on the outside. You took me away every game, every away game. I was either on the bench or sat in the stands as an unused player. And I don't feel like I've enjoyed my time. I'm just going to stay at home. And that summer, then I went to Villa. Probably the hardest decision my life had to make was going to Villa. Had I stayed at Everton, could I dislodge Kevin or Dave? I don't know. But I went to Villa purely to play football again, because I'd played so little football for the previous 18 months. I needed to play football. And that's the way life goes. You always wonder why certain players stay at clubs and other players move on. Managers don't suit, things don't work out. And I've got no regrets. I had 6 years at Everton Football Club, which I had 3 years in the first team, 1 year learning the trade, and 2 years in and out the team. I loved it. I've got the badge, I've got the t-shirt.
Yeah.
More importantly, I've got and the medals mean more to me than anyone will ever know. It just proves that a local lad who has a little bit of nous can make it in the game, and those medals mean so much to me. They're not just mine. I say to you before, they're yours as well, because you're the fan, and my medals have been handed to so many people over the years, and they've seen them all, because I don't like leaving the medals locked in a vault. They're always safely secured, but I love people being able to see them and hold them, because there's not many around. And if you can hold the Cup Winners' Cup medal and the FA Cup Winners' medal and the League Champion medal, and you love it, great. It's great for me, because I'm proud and honoured to have them, but they're not just mine. They're part of Everton's history, so they're part of you as well.
Yeah, Everton legends there, nonetheless. Now, one of the things, and maybe a bit of a strange last question, but you moved on to Wolves, right? And later Villa, and then later played for Wolves. I know Andy also played for Villa and Wolves as well. Is there considered a rivalry in that part of the world? I know you got West Brom in the mix as well, because you could never picture someone going from Man City to Man United or Everton to Liverpool. What's the climate like in that part of the world?
I'm going to just put my phone on charge and my iPad on charge. It's difficult to say. Villa Birmingham is pure hatred. I also believe that Albion. Am I still there?
Yep.
Yeah, I think Albion and Wolves again is pure hatred. After spending 10 years or 12 years in Birmingham playing for Villa, Wolves and Walsall,
of course,
I understand the rivalry there is intense. I look back at the Wolves and West Brom derbies and the Villa Birmingham derbies as absolutely mad. Birmingham fans would wait for the Villa coach to come out and pelt you with all sorts, and the same at Villa Park. They'd wait for the Birmingham coach. It was a really strange, sometimes nasty atmosphere. But I always thought the derbies up here were different. They were always friendly derbies. There was no friendliness about Villa Birmingham. But Villa, Wolves, West Brom, it really is. There's not many players that go from Wolves to West Brom or the other way around. Yeah, they might play for both teams over the years, but not many players go from one to the other. And I always find that quite strange. If your face doesn't fit at one place and the other place want you, what's the issue? Oh, you can't go straight to there. You can't. Oh, no one's ever done that. I talked to Steve Bull. I know Steve Bull and Andy Thompson very well. They're the one. They went from West Brom to Wolves in the 80s, and Steve Bull's an absolute legend at Wolves now. And he just, at the time it was, you can't do that. Well, I'm going to do it. You've got to be brave sometimes. But rivalries are what football's all about. I'm going to watch Wolves, Everton, the day Ozzy scored his first goal for Everton back, I'll be 2005, 6, I can't remember now.
Yeah, be around that time.
I rung up Wolves. Yeah, we got some tickets. So I turned up and I went to see the secretary and said, I've changed your tickets, Derek. They weren't very good ones. Take these ones instead. And I walk outside and it says, family enclosure. Right above the door says, visiting fans will be ejected. Well, so they know my blue. They give me the ticket. I walk in, sit down with the wife, the girlfriend at the time. And then Ozzy scores and there must have been 20. Get these big eyeballs. What are you doing in here? You sit down. And it was quite strange. The steward came to me and said, Derek, you shouldn't be standing up. I says, what's the problem? You're an Everton fan. I said, well, your club's giving me the tickets. Oh, so at half time we go down for a pint, and there's Leon's mum and dad, who'd also jumped up and got the looks. We have a quick pint. And we're going back to the seats, and we all get stopped. Well, I get stopped. You can't go in here. What do you mean? I've got a ticket. You're not allowed in here. You're a visiting fan. I said, well, your club's giving me the tickets, as with Leon's mum and dad. Come with us, all of you, come with us. And we got hoarded down to and had to sit behind the Wolves dugout, where we're in more danger because we're all together. But they're the sort of things that I laugh at, because everyone knows. I tell Villa fans, I tell Wolves fans, I'm an Evertonian. I'm not a Villa fan. I've got a bit in my heart. I'm not a Wolves fan, although a bit of my heart. I'm an Evertonian, and everyone knows it. I make a point of saying it to people, yet they still give me tickets where they shouldn't do. And I see Leon's mum and dad now, and we still laugh about that day when we all got moved at half time because we shouldn't have been in where we were. And they're the sort of things that you don't see in football now. You know, the players' families now are all tucked away in their own little areas now. When we played, we had 2 season tickets in the same seat every week, and we got 2 more tickets per game. And then we're all dotted up. But nowadays, the players are always either have their own boxes, have their own lounges, and that sort of stuff. But I just remember that day with a bit of fun. We had a good laugh. Leon's mum and I have a good laugh about that when we got shifted at Molineux the day he scored his first goal for Everton.
Funny stuff, Derek. I just want to say, mate, it's been absolutely wonderful to catch up with you. You know, the stories that you can tell and the juxtaposition of football then to now. I absolutely love hearing all about it. And in the future, you're more than welcome to come on the podcast to talk about Everton, football, whatever you like, mate.
You know, Max, you're going to get in touch. If I can help you out, I will do. I enjoyed our first conversation last year at Goodison before the Howard Way one. And you said to me, I'll be in touch. You said, no problems. You know, I'm still a football fan. Always will be an Evertonian, a very proud Evertonian, a very lucky Evertonian to do what I did. And I'm also very humbled by the way the fans treat us all and treat me, especially when I go back. It's quite humbling when they bow down in front of you and they want to talk to you and have a picture. I'm the best part of. I'm not far off my 60th birthday in a couple of years' time, and people still remember me, and that's the beauty of the game. I'm the same with the Bob Latchfords and the Dobbos and the players I meet all the time. I chew their ear all the time about things they did in their time, and you know, it's nice to be remembered and be, as I have for what I did for the club. But deep down, I'm still a Blue, and I was a very lucky Blue to do what I did.
It's been a pleasure, sir. Thanks for listening, everybody. Up the toffees.
Oh, too right.
Take care, Derek. Look after yourself, mate.
Right, I'm going to look at a property now. I'm going to go out of quarantine for now. Look at a house. So I will see you over the coming months, and fingers crossed we can get back to where we should be, at top of the table for once.
Of course, mate. Definitely. A bit of silverware as well. Definitely, mate.
All about the silverware, man.
All about it.
All right,
mate.
cheers, Matt.
See you later.
All right. See you, mate. Ta-ra.